20 to 9. The Prime Minister is with me in the studio. Mr Turnbull, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
The $5 billion for the rail link, is that a loan or a grant?
Well, it's equity. It's an investment. So what we want
we don't have to pay it back?
No. The proposal is, what we're putting to the state government is that we will own and build the rail link together as partners. So we would invest up to $5 billion for a 50% share. We should approach this in as innovative a way as we can, and I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for private sector participation. As you know, there are a variety of routes. We're just looking at the Herald Sun there and the 4 routes that have been widely canvassed. I've no doubt there are variations on those. The important thing is to get on with it, and $5 billion is the type of money and the type of leadership that we need to get this project started.
So how would it work? $5 billion from you, $5 billion from the state, and the rest private partnership?
Well, that may, yes, indeed, that's certainly feasible. Look, this is the new approach I'm taking to federal government investment in urban infrastructure. Wherever we can, we want to work as partners. Wherever we can, we want to be investors and co-owners. This type of partnership arrangement is the one we're taking, for example, with the north-south link to the Western Sydney Airport. 2020
is not on, though, is it? I mean, you need an environmental impact study, you need a business plan.
What, having it built by 2020?
No, started by 2020. That's not on, is it?
I wouldn't say it's not on. I think that would be ambitious, but yes, you should be able to get it started not long after that.
Will it affect funding to Victoria for any other things? Or is this just above and beyond everything else we get?
Well, this is part of our overall commitment. We've got including this, we've got $17.5 billion committed to infrastructure in Victoria.
That's my point. Is this $5 billion coming off somewhere else or not?
Well, we don't actually look at it that way, Neil. This is a massive investment, and we invest where there is need, and we are investing a lot of money into Victorian infrastructure. As you know, I say $17.5 billion in total, but you can think of the $500 million that's going into the Monash Freeway, federal money, the $1.4 billion that's going into regional rail. But this is a real game changer, and this has got the potential to do a lot more than simply get people to and from the airport sooner, get them home sooner and safer. This has got the potential to add livability and amenity to communities between the city and the airport.
Do you have a preferred route as yet?
No, I don't. I think that's something that's got to be looked at very carefully, and I think you've got to also be able to get expressions of interest from landowners, from local authorities, from the private sector to see how what they could contribute and work as partners as well. This is a very big deal. It's been in the too hard basket for far too long. It was first raised, in the mid-1960s by Henry Bolte. So let's get on and build it.
Okay, if you can't reach agreement with the state government, is it off?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on that. I don't think there's any doubt that we'll be able to reach agreement.
Well, you might have some disagreement over the route.
Well, I'm sure we'll reach agreement. I'm not going to. I mean, Neil, this sort of defeatism and negativity is what has stopped projects like this getting ahead in the past.
Well, yeah, but there's been a fair bit of politics played about in all these projects.
Well, Neil, there's no politics here. Okay. I'm putting $5 billion on the table. I want to get on and work with the Victorian government and build it.
Okay, it's the closest we've ever been.
I believe so. I believe so. It's the first time any leader has actually put a lot of money on the table to do it.
Okay, a couple of other things, if I may, while you're here. Are you working to a Christmas deadline now after what Barnaby Joyce said?
No.
I mean, the 30 news polls have been
Well, if you're asking me when the next election will be, it'll be in the first half of next year in accordance with the Constitution.
Well, both he and Tony Abbott have suggested that if things haven't looked up by Christmas, there could be more trouble.
Look, everyone's entitled to be a commentator if they wish. I'm the Prime Minister. My job is to get on and make decisions and build infrastructure and get on and, for example, today, get on and build a rail line from Melbourne to the airport.
Okay. Just on something else, is it correct that some ministers, because of the tension with China, have been refused visas to China?
Look, I wouldn't go that far. I would say that there's obviously been, there's clearly been some tension in the relationship following the introduction of our legislation about foreign interference, but I'm very confident that any misunderstandings will be resolved.
Declined?
Look, I can't. I don't. I wouldn't say they've been declined, Neil. I'd have to be careful and precise about that. I want to say we have a very good relationship with China. I regularly correspond with Chinese leaders, both the Premier Li Keqiang and the President Xi Jinping. But it is very. But it is. The relationship is very deep and extensive. But from time to time, there are differences of perception.
Yeah, but let me put that another way. Are the ministers trying to get into China who have got some delays on their visas, because that's the way they tend to do it? I've suffered that myself. Is there a problem with any ministers in our government getting visas to go to China?
I've seen the reports, and all I would say is that there clearly has been some misunderstandings and mischaracterizations of our foreign interference legislation in some of the Chinese media. I just want to say again that we have a very strong and respectful relationship with China, and like every nation, we do everything we can to ensure that our politics is not, that any foreign influence in our politics is open and declared. We don't accept foreign interference in our political or governmental processes, and that is not directed at any one nation. And indeed, the most obvious example around the world, of course, is Russia at the moment.
Prime Minister, I understand all that, but if we have got to a stage where there is a problem with ministers in the Australian government getting into China because of visa difficulties, it is a significant step. Are you prepared to answer whether that's happened?
Well, I would say, Neil, I want to be precise about this. I would say that there has been there is certainly some tension. There has been a degree of tension in the relationship that has arisen because of criticism in China of our foreign interference laws. But it is very important that the Australian government ensures that only Australians are influencing our political processes, and where foreigners seek to influence, they do so openly and transparently.
Another problem, Tony Abbott says you're being tricky on immigration, playing like a barrister. Now, Peter Dutton says he did discuss with ministers the possibility of cutting immigration by 20,000
Well, I'm not
people.
sure that he said that. But
has it been discussed by ministers?
Well, let me be very clear. Well, firstly, what was initially said in the media, I think in the Australian, was that there had been a submission brought to Cabinet by Peter Dutton to reduce the ceiling on permanent migration, and it is a ceiling; it's not a target. In fact, we're about last year we were about 10,000 less than it.
Yep.
But to reduce that ceiling, and that he had been rolled by me and Scott Morrison. That is untrue.
Okay. Well, was it discussed between ministers?
Well, if you're asking, I'm not going to go into...
Were you involved?
No, hang on, Neil. Just let me answer the question. If you're asking me, do ministers discuss migration and migration levels and the composition of the migration program? Well, of course we do. Of course we do. It would be strange if we didn't. And I might say the permanent migration ceiling, which has been set at 190,000 for a long time, and which we were well below last year, and we expect to be below this year, that is reviewed every year, every single year.
Well, put it another way, is it time for a pause while we sort out how big we want to be?
Well, look, let's have a talk about migration. The thing that is driving the increase in foreigners in Australia, right, which is often just included in this term net overseas migration, as foreign students who are not part of the permanent migration system, and visitors, tourists and business visitors. There are around well over 200,000 more foreign students in Australia today than there were a few years ago. That is the single biggest driving factor. So if you feel there are more foreigners on the tram and you can't get a seat on the tram, that is because of that, if that's your perception, they are most likely to be students or visitors.
Well, let's look at it a different way. How big should Australia be? What, have we got an idea anywhere in mind in government? This is the optimum size, and that's what we aim for, and we don't allow it to get any bigger than that.
Well, the migration program, you've got to, slice it up into the different components. We have a lot more tourists coming into Australia. I think we're all in favour of tourism. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm talking about permanent population.
Okay.
What do we? How big do we want to be?
Well,
Peter Costello told us to breed, and we wanted immigration. All that's changed. How big does Australia want to be? What's the figure?
Well, we need the size of Australia, the size of our population should be that level that enables all of us to have a better and better standard of living.
And what is that?
And it depends entirely on the infrastructure. I mean, Neil,
but we have to plan, surely.
Well, Neil, that's what we're doing.
So what's the figure?
Well, Neil, it is not a particular figure. The question is, if you have more people in a particular area, right, and you do what governments all too often do and fail to put in the transport and the amenities, then there will be congestion and people will be disappointed and unhappy. If, however, you plan ahead, which is what I am doing, and this is what the federal government is doing in a way that no previous Prime Minister has done, getting involved, planning ahead, then because you have the infrastructure, you can have more people, you can have greater density, and you bring with it greater livability and amenity.